What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Pick Six Podcast, CBS Sports Daily NFL Podcast. I'm Brinson. I'm your host. It's Pick Show, WildCard Weekend, Super WildCard Weekend, excuse me. Joining me to break down all the games. I guess we'll be faster today because we don't have any Pete Prisco with us. He's got alarm bells going off in his high-rise penthouse in South Florida, a secret location. Joining me, RJ White. What's up, buddy?
What's up? Non-zero chance that'll happen to me too. Just judging by this place, it seems like every 10 days the alarms go off randomly. So it's not, we're maybe a 1% chance of me having to duck out to or hit that mute button and kind of flash signs at you and tell you when I can talk and when I can't.
Well, you just wave your arms wildly, and I'll just filibuster. I'm pretty good at that. There's one thing
I can talk twice as much and insult you more. Just get the Prisco angle if you really want.
That's right. Yeah. It does feel significantly less tan on this show than normal, thanks to Pete being on a little less mean as well. But that's how it is. So all right. So the other thing too, with the reason we want Pete on here, but whatever, is we could have hashed out certain rules. For instance, like if I do a money line parlay, can I get X units back? Are we going to allow ourselves to do that in this?
Are you talking when we're doing these combo bet kind of things? We're trying to keep it in that alley of plus 110 to minus 130. So it's kind of like a normal bet anyway. Right. So if that's what you're putting together, but if you're trying to get like a 2 plus 250 and you want extra units, I think it might be a little bit out there for us.
Yeah, that's what I was asking. I'll give out the money line parlay. We just won't count it for the picks. How about that? Sure. I mean, it's like, it's also kind of obvious. I was going to mention it I was on our buddy Nick Costa's radio show yesterday. And I was going to mention I was going to mention it anyway, but I digress.
It's obvious. There's no way it comes in. So once you give it out, everybody can start thinking about which team's going to lose. That's
true too. And we're going to do props. We're going to allow props.
Yeah. Again, if it's relatively in that close to a coin flip type of odds.
Yeah, I'm saying like player props. Like if you're like, I like
right, yeah.
Yeah, I like a couple.
But if it's like over under 1.5 touchdowns at minus 220, then
right,
it's
of course not. Yeah, that would be. We're all quasi respectable here. Sort of respectable here. So like, yeah. So for instance, like I think just looking at this, like player to score. I'm looking at the first game that we're doing. Seahawks at 49ers. Christian McCaffrey is minus 240 to score a touchdown. Nobody's doing it. You can't do that.
Right.
But Kenneth Walker at plus 120 to score a touchdown. I think that's reasonable. And it's just a 1-for-1 unit swap. If it's a bet that you really like, we're not taking it just to like rack up extra units and get extra bets in. But I mean, I think if it's one that you like, nothing wrong with that. Let's start with the Seahawks at the 49ers. Niners minus 9.5 with a total of 42.5. Kind of weird this line hadn't climbed above 10, or maybe it's telling, RJ.
Yeah, it's kind of bounced back and forth. It's been 10 sometimes, it's been 9.5 sometimes. I'm a little interested as why Seahawks are getting some love at 10. This line was only San Francisco minus 3 in Seattle for Thursday Night Football Week 15. So it seems on the surface that's a massive adjustment. But you remember, that's obviously a short week. That was Brock Purdy's first road game. So we were kind of still up in the air whether he was any good or not. This was kind of, again, that was going to be his first test. And they won the game pretty convincingly. I mean, it was only 21-13. But in every other Brock Purdy game where he's played a majority of the snaps, the San Francisco 49ers have scored at least 33 points. So now that he's kind of in the mix there, in rhythm, these figure they're going to score 30 in this game against the Seattle defense. So the question is, will Seattle score 20 on the 49ers to keep it close? And I'm not sure they will. Seattle's weak at defending the run. Shanahan's going to love exploiting that. And that San Francisco defense bounced back last week, aside from the long touchdown to start the game. So I have a best bet at San Francisco minus 10, 9.5 now. Obviously, get it at 9.5. Dogs of 10 plus points in the wild card round are 2-9 against the spread all time. And the two that won were both at home. It was one of those bad division winners that win, and then they sneak in, and nobody gives them a chance, and then they cover, maybe sometimes win. But 0-9 on the road. So in this situation, and you take the slider down to 9 points, it's basically the same thing. In this situation, you want to be on the favorite. So that's why I like laying the points with the 49ers here.
Wow. Okay, that's interesting. It's a great stat. Makes me. I didn't have Seattle as a best bet. I wouldn't have. I sort of wanted to lean to Seattle just because it's like it's 9.5. There's going to be nasty weather. Total's coming down a full point from 43.5 earlier in the day, yesterday. And Brock Purdy in his first playoff game ever. I know it's Geno Smith's first playoff game ever, but you tend to, I think when you look at the sort of the average performance of veterans in their first playoff games, you can tend to get some better, better stat lines, better outcomes from those veterans than you can with the guy who's a rookie, especially, I mean, and look, he's got a lot of panache, a lot of swag to him, all of that. I mean, don't you worry a little bit about the rookie quarterback spot here?
Sure, but we know in this system, like he's not going to make him do too much. If it was somebody you got to throw out there and ask him to win the game for you, you'd be worried. But in this big of a spread, he's not going to have to win the game for them. Essentially, they're not going to put him in those type of spots. The thing on the other side is you have to worry about will Seattle score enough. You can bet these highest scoring and lowest scoring teams for the weekend props, and Seattle is the second highest odds for low scoring team, or second best odds, lowest scoring team at plus 400, only behind the Dolphins, who might be starting Skylar Thompson at quarterback. So Seattle is not expected to score very many points in this game. They have closer to zero odds than the Baltimore Ravens, and Baltimore might be starting Anthony Brown or banged up Tyler Huntley. So I don't think there's any faith in Seattle scoring a ton of points here.
People are dogging Pete in the comments. Pete, for those wondering, Pete has alarm bell situations going off at his condo, high-rise penthouse condo in a secret downtown South Florida location. Otherwise, but we have his best bets, and we will give them out to you as well. Okay. I mean, look, maybe you taught me into taking the Niners here. I was leaning towards. I was begrudgingly leaning towards the Seahawks. Basically, it's like a Brock Purdy's Mr. Irrelevant. It's a tough spot for a rookie quarterback to actually pull off, winning that game. But you're right. I mean, if it's more likely that. It's much more likely, actually, that Geno Smith is in a position where he has to throw the ball a ton to try and come back against a Niners team that can do whatever it wants offensively in the run game, particularly. Maybe Deebo Samuel should be back for this game. They'll use him in that aspect. Like they'll be able to do what they want offensively, forcing Geno to throw versus there is a game script and an outcome where the Seahawks get up early, just fluke stuff or a bomb to DK Metcalf and a 3-and-out or something like that, and then. But even then, I guess Brock Purdy's not going to be asked to toss it all around the place. Like they're going to stay calm and just stick to their game script. I would think so.
Right. And San Francisco's known this game was coming. Seattle didn't think they were going to be in it, and then the Lions upset the Packers at the end. It kind of feels like the Seahawks have already won. This season.
True.
They were expected to be the basement level team in that division. Nobody gave them. I think their win total was 6 wins, 6.5 wins, and they're going to make the playoffs. That's already like the feather in the cap for Pete Carroll, and this team is already going to be considered a success. It's kind of free rolling from here. So I think 49ers are motivated and focused on winning the Super Bowl, while Seahawks have kind of already passed the point where we thought they would be, and anything from here is gravy.
Yeah, that's a good point. We're noting they beat the Seahawks by 20 in week 2, and then of course beat the Seahawks by 8 in week 15. So they have dominated this matchup this season. All right. I'm going to go take the Niners in my office pool because I got to get something on it. Can't really tease them from 9.5, right? You need 9 to tease.
Yeah, we need 8.5.
You need 8.5, I guess.
If it's 9.5, you can do a 7-point teaser if you want to lay the minus 140. But what other game are you getting that where 7 is at an advantageous number?
Right.
Not really there. I mean, the other two, you might as well do the 6-point teasers, the ones that are on the board.
Right. Okay. All right. Moving along to our next game. The Los Angeles Chargers. Whoo, this line's on the move. At the Jacksonville Jaguars. Line got all the way down to Chargers -1, and has now creeped up to Chargers -2.5. Obviously, what's your analysis, RJ? I'm curious too. Do you any insight into why that line's ticking up that much for is it because the Chargers posted a "We've got receipts" social media post on Twitter yesterday, and everybody knows that they're
I'm sure all the big bettors are making their bets based on things that happen on social media. That's how you win a ton of money on betting games. No, I think it actually might have gotten down to pick 'em in some places too. And it seems like everybody has identified the Chargers as being much better than the Jaguars, and they want to be on the Chargers side. They don't see Jaguars as having a very good home field advantage. They see Jaguars barely struggling to get in against Josh Dobbs, and they want to fade the Jaguars here. But this is still a team that won 5 straight games to make the playoffs, had a tough win against a great coach in week 18, beat the Cowboys in overtime. They have some impressive wins. They beat the Ravens before Lamar Jackson got hurt in that big Trevor Lawrence comeback. So they've been putting together good wins. The Chargers would be on a similar run, but they played everybody last week and they still lost a meaningless game. So that they've tended to do that with some opponents. They played onto opponents sometimes. They are considered the much better team here, but they have just one win against a winning team all year, and it's Miami. In that game where Tua, I don't think was 100%, and Miami still decided to throw the ball instead of running the ball, which is what you do on the Chargers. And for whatever reason, they skipped that game plan and they decided to throw it with Tua, and they lost that game, I believe, by 6. But every other winning team has beaten the Chargers. Most of those games tend to be close because Chargers are playing teams like the Chiefs close to 3 points, whatever. But they are also only beating teams like Atlanta's and the Houstons, and they aren't beating these formidable teams. So your opinion of this game should be whether the Jaguars are a good team, whether they're a formidable team. And I think they'll commit to the run. They'll exploit the Chargers' weakness here, like Denver did. Denver had 205 rush yards last week. Their pass defense is on a strong run also, but it's against some bad quarterbacks, and obviously stepping up to Justin Herbert is huge, especially if the offensive coordinator is calling a game that plays to his strengths, which is kind of a 50-50 proposition with these Chargers games. You never know what kind of game plan you're going to get with them. But the other key stat here, home dogs of less than 3 in the wild card round, 8-1 against the spread, while home dogs of 3 or 3.5 are more of a toss-up. So if the situation sees that the road team is 3 points better, 3.5 points better, it's kind of a toss-up whether they cover or not. If it's like they're not quite 3 points better, then the home field advantage takes over, the crowd takes over, I think, and these home dogs do better than people expect. So I want to have the Jaguars in this game. I don't think they're being given enough credit for their home field advantage. I think the Chargers' travel schedule plays a part here, having to travel on the road to Denver, come back. Now they're on a short rest, have to travel back to Jacksonville. So I like the Jaguars here. I have them as a best bet at +2.
Well, I've got some good news and some bad news. The bad news is pretty much that Pete and I agree with you. No surprise for Pete. Pete's a big Jaguars fan. I think, Pete obviously doesn't like Brandon Staley very much. I mean, I don't want to speak for Pete with his analysis here, but I think it's pretty obvious. If you know Pete, if you watch this show, if you listen to this show, if you listen to Pete talk anywhere, you got a home dog with the Jaguars in the playoffs, Doug Peterson versus Brandon Staley. He's going to back the coach that he thinks is the better coach in Doug Peterson. Also, I didn't realize that the freaking Chargers were that bad against. They only beat one winning team. That's insane. And you go back and look at the curb stomping the Jaguars put them on back in was it week 3? I think.
Right. And that was coming off that game where everybody got banged up for the Chargers. They lost several key guys. Justin Herbert, we suspected was going through an injury and playing through it. So it's no surprise that they struggled in that game. I don't want to read too much into that blowout and say Jacksonville's a much better team. But
I do like to read into the fact that they had 30 carries from James Robinson and Travis Etienne for 145 yards and a touchdown. Now, along of 50. So, I mean, you can take that out if you want and adjust the mean. I just think Doug Peterson's smart enough to run the football against his team. And he's going to feed Travis Etienne and feed JaMychal Hasty, and then let Trevor Lawrence work off some play action against the Chargers secondary that is good, but you can exploit it. The Mike Williams being banged up thing, I mean, we have no idea if he's going to play or not. As of Wednesday afternoon, he hadn't practiced. We recorded this on Thursday afternoon, way before the West Coast teams will put out injury reports. His back spasms that he suffered because he was playing unnecessarily in that game. I think that matters. That's a big deal. That Jaguars actually did a great job of bottling up Austin Eckler in the first game. There was no Keenan Allen in that game either, and Mike Williams was pretty ineffective. So Allen matters, of course. I expect Mike Williams will probably end up playing, although, again, very much up in the air. I'm taking the Jaguars as the best bet, though. I think the Jaguars just win the game. The line movement's a little weird. I guess if it's going to keep ticking up, give me, I'll wait. And you don't think it gets past 3, do you?
I don't think it even gets 2-3. I actually put it in on Sportsline at 2.5 because I just can't see a game that was around that pick'em area getting all the way to 3 because that's just too much to give people to hedge on each side. So
that's
I think
a crazy amount of movement.
Yeah, 2.5. I think it's a good teaser number for the Jaguars, but I like taking them. I'm on your side. I think they win the game.
All right, so all three of us have the Jaguars as a best bet. I actually think, let me look and just see real quick. I haven't looked at this. I'm sorry. Apologies for that. I was going to see what Travis Etienne's, they have the rushing yards on. Yeah, total rushing yards, or at least total rushing attempts. Etienne, 16.5. That's a ton. Total rushing yards, 76.5. I like the over there, though. It's juice minus 123, so I won't take it for the purposes of our pod, but I mean,
I think you could take that one. That's kind of fine. I mean, we do minus 120 teasers all the time, so I don't have a problem taking that.
All right, I'll take the over. All right, so I'll add the Jaguars and Travis Etienne over rushing yards as two best bets. A lot of best bets this week. How many do you have total?
I have 4, I believe. Yeah, you like the spot in there. Like, so in a regular season game, you're conserving guys. They're mixing it up a little more often. But this is the playoffs. This is when your talented guys should be getting the ball more. So you figure he can exploit this matchup better, and you don't want to give them as even a thing. Like if Hasty has 10 carries in this game, the Jaguars better be winning by 20 plus points.
Correct. Now, yeah, Etienne only has. Well, I guess he did give him. Yeah, he had 3 games with 20 plus carries. That's not usually his style. They won 2 of them against the Jets in Week 16, and then the Raiders in Week 9. They barely lost to the Broncos. We had a monster game with 24 carries, 156 yards. I mean, you can get him up in that 20 carry range, and he can have a dominant game. So I'll take the over in yardage because I trust maybe the more explosive stuff. And if they get a lead, I do think we'll see some Jermichael Hasty. But yeah,
he can pop a big one. Yeah. So he might get 15 carries, but pop a big one and get 100 yards anyway.
15, he rips off a 40-yarder. You're there in the first half, maybe.
So I guess it sounds like we're not concerned at all about the Trevor Lawrence we saw on Saturday against Tennessee or Sunday, whenever it was. That was overthrowing people, looked jittery. I mean, I don't have a concern. I think that he's played in plenty of big games in his career.
Yeah.
So I wasn't worried about it. I think it's just one night there, but you have to. That's the one thing that would make me concerned about this is if that Trevor Lawrence shows up, it's going to be hard to beat Justin Herbert.
I mean, just to counterpoint that, play devil's avocado, if you will. Maybe that was his first playoff game because it was. I mean, it was basically a playoff game. You know, you're either it's win or go home, and you sort of wonder like, did he get his NFL jitters out in week 18, which would be a huge bonus against the Chargers, knowing that Justin Herbert has not played in a playoff game before, and this will be his first playoff game on the road. And like, I don't think the weather will be that bad on.
No, I don't think the weather's bad anywhere except for I think there might be rain in this 49ers Seahawks game.
And so you have that, but it's gonna be his crowd will be wild there. Like that crowd will be loose. That I mean, you're talking about a bunch of like Duval Redbirds down there screaming their faces off for the Jacksonville Jaguars. So
the other thing you take into account there is Trevor Lawrence. I mean, if you're Doug Peterson, you just assume he's a big game quarterback. His history, you don't have to worry about that. And then you see what you see last week. Now you have the opportunity to coach, and go in and say, this is something we thought wasn't an issue. We just assumed. And now that's something we have to kind of tackle. So they do have the chance to go in this week and get better and get him in the right path of what he would have done if it was, say, Nick Foles at quarterback.
That's a good point. Great point. All right. Dolphins at the Bills. The Bills all the way up to -13 on the news that Tua Tagovailoa was ruled out. If I had to guess, RJ, I would say that you have something on Sportsline at Bills -9.5 or Bills -10. Am I correct?
I do not. I didn't want to play the Bills. I think that number 9.5, 10 is about right if Teddy's the quarterback. Right now, everything's pointing to it being Thompson, which is why it's 13. I don't know that there's a ton of value at 13. And if Teddy does play, and he's able to manage his injury, I could see that being like a 10-point type game. So I didn't want to play the Bills, especially that big number, especially being my team. I got enough riding on the game in my my heart betting than with my pocket betting. So I would still lean to the Bills. I mean, that same thing about the dogs of 10 plus points in wild card round on the road applies here like it does to Seattle. But Miami played Buffalo tough twice, surprised them with the run game the last time. Now Mostert's hurt, so who knows? But it's not like Jeff Wilson has been bad when they've had to turn to him. So I think they could still have success there if that's what they try to do. Buffalo's rating may be a little too inflated. They didn't really beat the Patriots by 12 points. They had those 2 kickoff return touchdowns. So it was really a game where Josh Allen struggled through those interceptions and a good defense. Now I don't know if Miami has a good defense, but a good defense might be able to take advantage of him a little bit more. That Miami defense did show up in a big way against the Jets. I know it's Joe Flacco, but Joe Flacco did have some success early in the season. Game on the line. That would have been a matchup where you figure the Jets could at least get to 13 points and win the game, and they didn't. Miami's defense showed up. So we'll see. The injury report for Miami is going to determine this game, I think. Not just Teddy, but other guys have been banged up. But Buffalo has the capacity to slow down Miami's offense if they have to throw the ball, and I don't know that the same's true for Miami, despite what we saw last week with the jump up from Joe Flacco to Allen. So with the trend of double-digit favorites covering here, I would lean to the Buffalo, but I don't love it at 13.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a tough number. I like Buffalo at 9.5 or 10. I took that immediately, along with another game in a minute. But I wouldn't make the Bills at -13 at best bet. Although I do think the double-digit Buffalo has more 14+ point wins on in the NFL over the last 2 years than any other team in terms of covering 14-point spreads. So if somebody's going to do it, it's going to be the Bills. We've seen they have a real disdain for their division opponents. Like now that they've developed this, this sort of identity as one of the NFL's best teams. I mean, they the last couple of years they've knocked the Bills out of the. I mean, they knocked the Patriots out of the playoffs. They knocked the Dolphins out of the playoffs. They do it in big out of getting into the playoffs, and then you get an actual playoff matchup. They smoked the Patriots last year in the actual playoffs. Skylar Thompson defense or Skylar Thompson, the Dolphins, man. If it's in against Josh Allen in Buffalo, I think that this could get ugly. So I would lean towards the Bills, but 13 is a bit much for me, and I can't see it climbing up past 14. And that's giving 2 touchdowns even to Skylar Thompson in a playoff game is too much, right?
Yeah, because you look at the Miami side and their coaching staff, and we think McDaniel's a good coach. He seemed to have done well this year, get this team to the playoffs, especially considering the quarterback issues in the back half of the year, and even early in the year too, because Tua had that absence, and then Teddy had that absence. So this team is really like, the Rams are losing quarterbacks left and right, and they go 5-12 or 6-11, wherever they went, and Miami still managed to make the playoffs in a pretty tough division. So I think credit to that coaching staff. I wouldn't want to be laying a ton of points against them, which is why 13. I just not too comfortable doing it. It's not like the Bills need to win this game by 20, 30. They just need to advance and start getting ready for that Bengals game that we expect is going to be coming in the next round that everybody's been waiting for since the first one got canceled.
That's right. And worth noting, about 30 degrees on kickoff when for the Dolphins, which we've seen it. Maybe the cold weather doesn't impact them that much, but I certainly think I would rather have the Bills in that kind of cold weather than the Miami Dolphins. Just looking at anytime touchdowns, nobody's minus money. Stephon Diggs plus 101, Singletary plus 109, and Jeff Wilson plus 118. Gross. Josh Allen plus 150, James Cook 155. Anything intrigue you there?
Not really. I don't think those are valuable odds. I kind of just have a feeling James Cook scores a touchdown, and they're a little bit more ground focused because they are huge favorites, and the only way that you can probably lose this game is multiple turnovers. So just keep the ball safe, drive into the Miami side of the field, kick field goals if you have to, but try to win this game. Force
Skylar Thompson to try to beat you with his arm.
Right. Try to win this game 23-10 or 23-13 as opposed to 38 to whatever.
You see the spread. Draw your own conclusions there. All right, let's take a break. And when we come back, we will talk about the game between the 2 biggest roller coaster rides in the entire NFL. Next, the Giants at the Vikings. The Vikings -3. The Giants getting some juice here on Caesars. +3, -120, a total of 48. I mean, look. The Vikings are 11-0 in one-score games, and the only team that's been better in one-score games or better in these close games has been this year has been the Giants. It's a real I don't want to call it strength on strength or anything, RJ, but it's a very interesting matchup to say the least.
Yeah, going through the second half of the season, everybody saw these teams look like they might be playoff teams, and they're going, I cannot wait to fade these teams in the first round of the playoff, both of them. That was kind of like if either one of them gets, well, you knew Minnesota would be in, but if the Giants get in, I want to fade both these teams. Well, good luck. They're playing each other. Now who do you fade? So you got to make a decision here. These teams just played to a near draw in week 16. The line was 4.5 for Minnesota in that game, but it was even at the end of the game. Minnesota kicked a 61-yard field goal to win it. So I think these teams can play even. The Giants offense typically run focused. Coming into that game, they didn't have very good pass statistics for most of the season. And the question was whether they could take advantage of that Minnesota pass defense. And they did. Daniel Jones threw for 300 plus yards. Obviously, you have a very smart coach in place that knows how to exploit team weaknesses on the other side of the ball. And I think they can do that again here. The Giants starters mostly got a bye to get healthy and rested. Minnesota didn't. They played their starters for most of that game. And then you look at situational football. The Giants defense is 5th on third down and 5th in the red zone. So if Minnesota is playing well, they can still get enough stops in field goal range and limit them to some field goal tries and keep it close and keep it, a game in the 20s as opposed to a game in the 30s. And that's the type of game I think they could win with their coaching advantage, with the rest factor. So I think this is the one-score game Minnesota finally loses and the Giants win outright. But at +3, I have the Giants as the best bet.
Right there with you. Pete actually has a best bet on the Giants as well, and the over in this game, over 48, and the Giants +3. I have the Giants +3 as well. It's like you don't want to downgrade what Minnesota did because they had a great season, won the division handily. found a way to win these really close games. Kevin O'Connell deserves consideration for coach of the year. They have Dalvin Cook, Justin Jefferson, Kirk Cousins, Adam Thielen, explosive playmakers all over the place. TJ Hawkinson now too. I mean, they've got a lot of explosive playmakers. They can certainly score against this Giants team. I tend to think that over is a pretty good look as well. I'm a little surprised it hadn't ticked up with the indoor action, but maybe you see the Giants maybe you see both teams try and run the ball to sort of come out a little nervous. I mean, Daniel Jones' first playoff game. By the way, that's a big theme in these playoffs. The quarterbacks in these playoffs are real, especially at least on the NFC side, are really lacking experience outside of Thomas Edward Patrick Brady. I just think the Giants are going to find a way to steal this one somehow. And that Minnesota's been same sort of thing you're saying. Minnesota's been playing with fire all year long. Eventually that comes back to bite you in the ass. You can't live on these one-score games the entire season and expect it to just keep winning them all. And to me, it's like the perfect setup where they go 11-0 in these one-score games. I don't think anybody's ever done it before. And then you get to the playoffs and you get the Giants, who just also felt like kind of a luck box for a lot of the season, and just found a way to win. And then the Giants steal your soul with that one-score victory. So I've got the Giants +3, and I think I would take the Giants +3 sooner rather than later. I bet it comes down. You see the juice, obviously that indicates it could move. You're getting 3 points against the Vikings. You got to take that almost all year long.
Yeah, I don't think it was ever going to 3.5. So I wanted to jump on the 3 pretty quickly. Considering it was 4.5, you might have wanted to wait and say maybe we can get 3.5. But the way that first game went, and the way the Giants were playing, I didn't think that was likely. I know you've talked about how the Giants seem much like the first Bills team that made the playoffs, and they're kind of playing over their skis. And I think Minnesota kind of applies to that too. They have a better offense, they have better playmakers there, but they have a worse defense. But you still have to feel the faith of the organization now, the new coach, that they're going to be a good team moving forward, even if it's not all in place to make a Super Bowl run this year. So it's not dogging on the Vikings. It's not saying they didn't deserve to make the playoffs. I mean, they were by far the best team in the NFC North the whole year. So credit to them, but it's just now you're going to get into these NFC playoffs, and I mean, the path is open. It's not like the NFC playoffs are super locked up. You kind of dissed on Brock Purdy earlier. That's a third string quarterback, rookie, Mr. Irrelevant, playing for the number 2 seed that a lot of people are picking as their Super Bowl favorite coming out of the NFC. And then the number 1 seed is a guy who's banged up, and we didn't really look 100% healthy there. So we'll see how effective Jalen Hurts is starting next week. So, I mean, it kind of could be a wide open NFC, and maybe the Vikings do continue to get fortunate in one-score games and make a run.
Yeah, we'll see. We all have the Giants as the best bet, though. So Giants and the Jaguars. Looks like we got a little money line parlay coming together here, potentially. We'll see. Pick Six Podcast playoff parlay.
Got to bring it back. Bring back the old favorites.
I think Pete's going to ruin it, unfortunately.
If Tom Brady's in the playoffs again, we need to bring back the money line.
Bring back the old dinosaurs. Yeah, that's right. Okay. Next up. Also, I've got Danny Dimes over passing attempts. It's like 32.5. 33.
Yeah, that should be the way they attack. I know it worked last time. Hitting big plays, and it's not like they have deep shot playmakers. It's a lot of work over the middle and the intermediate to Hodgins and Richie James and those guys.
It's up to 32.5 -127. Yeah, I like that a lot. So I think the over there for Danny Dimes, 32.5 passing attempts. It's my third, one of 3 player props I'll be giving out along with my best bets. Doesn't have a ton of weapons, but Kenny Golladay scores 2 touchdowns. Was my bold prediction for on the bold prediction playoff pod. Listen to that.
Over the rest of his career.
Up high, down hard. They didn't even list Kenny Golladay as a 2-touchdown score for this game. That is pathetic. My God, come on, throw me a bone here, people. Where's a Golladay? One Golladay touchdown is 9.5 to 1. I can't believe Wilson tried to tell me that wasn't bold. That's insanely bold.
Yeah, it's definitely not happening too.
Right. I can't include that as a part of the best bet show. I'm gonna just throw out that you should nibble on Kenny Golladay.
So that highest scoring team win a lowest scoring team for the playoffs. The Giants.
For the playoffs or just for the first?
Or for the first round, the Giants are only 10 to 1, and the Cowboys are 9 to 1, which tells you the state of the Minnesota defense is.
Wow.
The Giants are kind of right there in that mix of the second tier behind the
Giants
Bills.
10 to 1 is kind of interesting.
Yeah, you got the Vikings at 6-1, Bengals at 7-1, Chargers 7.5-1, and then Cowboys 9-1 and Giants 10-1.
I mean, you can see the and the Giants can put up 45 points and lead the because you got Chiefs are on bye, Eagles on bye, Bills are in a game with low total. I like that look. We're just throwing out some stuff. We're throwing out some stuff. We're not saying it's best bets, but you might want to think about betting because you can bet it, but we can't include it. Like, would you bet Giants 10-1, high scoring team?
I mean, it's not the value isn't there, but if I'm just looking for a lottery ticket to root for, I think that's a fun one. It's also one of the later games, Sunday afternoon. So it's not going to be ruined, at least for most of the first 24 hours.
Yeah, like if you take the 49ers high scoring team and like you might
they win like 20-9, you're like, okay, well, I'm not winning this bet.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. All right, Ravens at the Bengals. I took the Bengals -6.5 as a best bet. Not as a best bet, excuse me. I actually bet it myself when it came out. Felt like that line was too low. Even if maybe Lamar Jackson played, there's a bug flying around my house right now. I'm trying to kill it. I think I got him. Sorry. Bengals now -9.5 with the news that Lamar Jackson unlikely to play. A total of 40.5 here, RJ, which is, I guess, indicative of no Tyler Huntley.
No, I don't think Tyler Huntley does too much as opposed to Anthony Brown. I mean, he had 16 points last week, and that's basically what Tyler Huntley's been giving you week in and week out. It's not like he opens up the offense anymore. So I think it could be a low total game. We did our lines when we sent them out at 8.5, and I put the Bengals as the first leg of the teaser at -2.5. It was 11 with Anthony Brown the week before, and even if we get a less than 100% Tyler Huntley, I'm not confident that 11 shouldn't be the right number here either. They did have a close, low-scoring game in Baltimore earlier in the season. Baltimore was much healthier at that time, and Cincinnati does have to worry about their offensive line, kind of banged up right now. So we'll see if they can hold Baltimore off there. Cincy also has a solid rush defense, so I think Baltimore is going to have to lean on the pass at some point. But Baltimore's defense played well against Cincy's offense last week. 2 early interceptions gave them touchdown drives that started on the Baltimore side on the field. But after that, Cincy's offense had just one of their final 10 drives go longer than 12 yards. So Baltimore's defense really showed up despite the score for most of last week. And we'll see if they can do that here. So I'm not confident in laying the huge number with the Bengals in case the Ravens defense does play very well. They have a great coaching staff as well, can minimize this game becoming a blowout. But I do think Cincy wins the game. And if you can tease it under 3, that's the play to make. So I made Cincy -2.5. The first leg of my teaser when it was at 8.5. Now that it is at 9.5, I mean, you could probably tease the Jaguars with the other team that we're going to talk about in a second.
Yeah, I mean, Cincy is right to be teased. And I would guess that like this line is sort of holding off going past 10 because we don't have any official news on the quarterback. If it ends up being Brown, like it's going to go past 10, won't it?
It should. I mean, like I said, it got to 11 last week, but that was also we didn't know if Baltimore was going to play everyone. I made the case on Twitter they didn't have to. Everybody was like, it's you give them the chance to get the home field advantage in this game with a coin flip. You give them a chance to be the 5 seed if they win. But in both of those situations, they had to go all out and beat the Cincinnati on the road in Week 18 to have a chance for either of those. Or you just rest everyone and beat Cincinnati on the road this week. And that's how it ended up playing out. They rest Mark Andrews. They rest some other guys. So I think that's the choice they made. Now that there's going to be more competitive, there is no tomorrow. Maybe it shouldn't be as high as 11, but I think if Anthony Brown's at quarterback, it's probably going to get to 10.
Yeah. In other words, if you like the Bengals, take them now. If you want to take a Bengals teaser, as RJ just pointed out, you want to take them now. I am going to take the over on the, not the over. I'm going to take the Bengals. And I'm also going to take the over on Joe Mixon rushing yards, which I think we see plenty of Joe Mixon in this spot. Got it. I believe it's at, let me double check. I think it was at 62.5, but maybe it's going up. Joe Mixon rushing yards total at 54.5. Maybe it's 52.5, and it's up to 54.5. 54.5 -127. Give me the over on total rushing yards for Joe Mixon at 54.5. I think he clears that easily because we're going to have a team with a big lead, pounding the football. Yes, Baltimore's running defense has gotten much better since Roquan Smith came to town, but you still have a team that should have a big lead that is going to want to shorten the game. You see the total at 40.5. This is not going to be a Joe Burrow slings it all over the place game, I don't believe. Wouldn't be surprised if they came out throwing. But they, much like the Bills, as we talked about earlier, who are going to run the ball a bunch in theory, the Bengals are going to want to shorten this game because they know what's coming up next week. They want to get this game over with and get prepped for the Bills, who, if they both win, they'll play, right?
Yeah, so they both win, they'll play each other.
Like guaranteed to play each other. Yeah. So, I mean, same spot. You see sort of like a correlated rushing yard total or pass. Like you could almost take a correlated passing yard under for the Bills and the Bengals. Not correlated, but like in the sense that both teams want to reduce the amount of like exposure that their players are going to have in this game.
Well, last week, the Bengals, I mentioned those 2 interceptions, set them up with short touchdowns. They got up 17-0 at the beginning of the second quarter, scoring a touchdown. Perfect time to go with a high rushing total with those guys. Their running backs combined for 45 yards on 17 carries. So Baltimore's defense just shut down everything in the run game. And then Cincinnati had to pass on a lot, especially on third down, led to Burrow having 42 pass attempts, even though that script, you would have said he's going to just, not have to throw a ton because they're up 17-0 at the beginning of the game. So I just think this is a bad matchup for Joe Mixon running the ball against Baltimore. They know how to handle this team and put the game in Burrow's hands, which, maybe that's where he wants it, considering his window is his whole career. But we'll see how that works out. I just don't have confidence that Cincy's going to be able to run the ball effectively in this game.
Okay. I still think we can get over 54.5, but yeah, I do agree that it's a more difficult task than maybe some of the other spots to run the football. Finally, how would you rate this slate? I wouldn't say I would rate this slate like an A+ or anything like that.
I think it's pretty good. I think we kind of get cheapened by not having Tua in there to play the Bills.
And Lamar too.
We get cheapened if Lamar doesn't play because we've just been waiting for him to come back for so long. But Giants, Vikings, it's better them facing each other than facing different teams and then kind of having to deal with, do both of those teams fall flat on their face? San Francisco Seahawks isn't a great game, but at least it's a rematch. These teams know each other well. Chargers, Jaguars, fascinating. Justin Herbert or Trevor Lawrence is going to be in the next round against probably Kansas City. So that'll be fun to watch. And gotta love this last game.
Yeah, have to love this last game. Cowboys at the Buccaneers, almost at the Patriots. It's the Dallas Cowboys, maligned constantly. Mike McCarthy constantly under pressure. Dak Prescott constantly being evaluated. Is he the guy? Is he the franchise guy? And now he heads to Tampa to play the guy who is the franchise guy. Thomas Edward Patrick Brady, 2.5-point home dog in a spot where, like, if the Cowboys got exactly what they didn't get exactly what they wanted. They got exactly what they knew they were going to get. One of two things: either win the division and probably get the 1 seed, or you finish second in the division. Eagles will get the 1 seed, and you get the 5 seed, and you get to go play some loser town 4 seed that came out of the NFC South with a losing record. Now, if they had the Panthers, that'd be great. You got Tom Brady, who's playing a little bit better the last couple of weeks, RJ, and I'm not sure that I would be enthused about having to go to Tampa Bay and play Tom Brady if I was the Dallas Cowboys, knowing that a loss here and Sean Payton is lingering out there.
And even if he's not, Cooper Rush is lingering out there. Dak Prescott's throwing interception after interception.
Led the league in interceptions.
Does not look very good. Tampa Bay dominated Dallas in week 1, even before Dak got hurt, though they had to settle for a lot of field goals in that game, so the score didn't get too out of hand. But them settling for field goals maybe have been a harbinger of Tampa's offensive struggles this year. They finished 25th in yards per play, 25th in points scored. Did not look like a team that had Tom Brady at quarterback for much of the year. Dallas defense, though, they played Minshew, Dobbs, and Howell since losing to Jacksonville, and they did not look great in those games. And they obviously did not look great offensively last week. Tampa Bay's offense is number 1 in sack rate. They can keep Tom Brady healthy, especially if they're getting healthier on the offensive line. And if they can do that, that neutralizes Dallas defense's strength. And then Brady can go pick on the secondary, which has been an issue with Anthony Brown's injury. So both teams do need to get healthier. So I think the injury report is key here. But those dogs of less than 3 at home, which I mentioned earlier with the Jaguars, that applies here. So you kind of want to be on Tampa in this side. 3 teams since 2010 have made the playoffs with losing records. All 3 covered in this round, but 2 were 10-point dogs. The other was a 6.5-point favorite going up against Ryan Lindley. That was your Cam Newton game against Ryan Lindley. So, of course, they're going to cover that game. This is kind of not on either side of those slates, so I think it's hard to judge. My only worry with Tampa is that Tom Brady is terrible at night now. They put him in primetime. Obviously, they want him in the primetime spot, but I think our research team found out he's like 2 win 16 in his last 18 games in prime time. He's becoming Kirk Cousins, in this situation. So
He's just old, man. It's his bedtime.
yeah, it's past his bedtime. So the question is, will he be able to overcome that, or will the Cowboys be able to overcome them tripping over themselves? It's kind of a fascinating game in the sense of neither of these teams you're too confident in, but one of them's got to win. I wanted to take Tampa, but at +3, I'm fine with it. At 2.5, they become the second leg of my teaser with Cincy. So I tease Tampa up to +8.5.
Yeah, I think that look, I'm probably gonna bet that teaser. Like in real life, the Bengals Bucs teaser. It's hard to see Tom Brady just get completely blown out. I mean, it was happening last year, and he still managed to storm back. And I realized that last year's team probably a little more explosive than this year's team. But I like the Bucs. I got the Bucs winning outright, and I think I got a money line parlay that I'm going to put in. I'm not going to count it for our best bets because it would be, it would pay out too much. But Bucs, Giants, Jaguars money line parlay 10-1, 3-game 10-1 parlay. If you wanted to, you could even, if you really want to get greedy, you could toss all 6 teams in there, add the other 3 favorites. You get 18-1. Like, I feel confident the Niners, Bills, and Bengals are going to win. So you got to get the 3 upsets from teams with the short spreads, and then you get the 3 big heavy spread winners, and 18-1 6-game parlay. That's not crazy money line parlay, right?
Yeah, you just need everything.
You need literally everything to go your way.
Everything you expect to happen to happen, and that just doesn't happen. But
it's not like everything that's expected to happen. It's everything I expect to happen.
Well, yeah, but even those 3 money line parlays. I mean, there's a world where Baltimore beats Cincy 13-10. It's not that out of the question that Harbaugh can go out and win that game. And then you're taking those 3 dogs. I mean, who knows? So I think there's probably some backing on the Giants anyway to win that game. Obviously, there's backing on the Bucs. So I think it's really just the Jaguars is the one that would go fly into the face of what other people are thinking with the Chargers.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay. Tim Tebow can play better than Baby Brady, says Randy Swanson. Randy, get a grip on your life, pal. If you're suggesting that Tim Tebow is better than Tom Brady, it's just not ever true at any point in either one of their careers. And I can't believe I'm even justifying. Why did we put that comment? Don't put a comment like that up. That's trash. No offense, Randy. I got the Bucs. Oh, and I forgot Pete's got the Cowboys as a best bet. My.
Fading the Brady in prime time.
Fading Brady in prime time. Good luck with that, Pete. Enjoy that with the Cowboys. Should have worked out well. Mike McCarthy against Tom Brady. Okay. So, our best bets. That's it for the games. Kind of fast. I guess it's only 6 games. Feels a little bit faster than a normal week, right? We have Pete as the Jaguars. He has the Vikings and the Giants over plus the Giants +3, and the Cowboys -2.5. I've got the Jags, Bengals, Giants, and Bucs +3 props for players. ETN over rush yards, Mixon over rush yards, and Danny Dimes over pass attempts. And then RJ, you have the Niners too, right? Yeah, we didn't have that on the rundown. So you got the Niners -10, Jacksonville +2, the Giants +3, and Cincinnati -2.5, and Tampa Bay +8.5 in a 2-game teaser. A lot of bets for the old wild card weekend for you boys here. I got probably way too many. I got seven best bets, including props. What could go wrong? And they're all overs. At least I got some dogs built in there. All right, RJ. That'll do it for us. Good stuff. You love it? Love to see it. Pete's not here, but if he was, we'd say for Pete. For RJ, I'm Brinson. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll see you guys later. Hope all your bets come in. We'll check with you for the recap of the wild card weekend, super wild card weekend. Bye.